Have you ever walked into a room and felt completely out of place, even when surrounded by people? Have you ever been in a conversation and felt an invisible wall between you and the person you're talking to, even though you tried to say all the right things? Don't be quick to blame yourself, because most of us have felt that way. The truth is, no one really remembers exactly what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So what truly makes someone magnetic, able to connect effortlessly and touch the hearts of others? It's not about cheap tricks, and it's certainly not about being fake. It's the art of reading people, understanding them, and responding with genuine sincerity at just the right moment. If you've ever wondered, how can I get others to listen to me, respect me, and trust me? Why do I always feel like an outsider in conversations? Or why do I so easily make mistakes when I react? You are not alone. This video will open up a completely new journey for you, mastering social intelligence, so that every word, every glance, every gesture you make has an impact. This isn't just a skill to help you succeed at work or build lasting relationships. It's the key to breaking through the barriers within yourself. No abstract theories, no beating around the bush. Just practical, clear steps to help you become the person everyone wants to be around, to listen to, and to share with. Are you ready? The story of your transformation begins right now. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Building trust by looking someone straight in the eye. If you truly want to understand the thoughts, feelings, and connections between people, you must start with the one fundamental thing everyone has experienced: trust. But trust doesn't start with words. It appears even before the conversation begins. Trust emerges from the look you give the person in front of you. That's right. You build trust by looking people directly in the eye. It sounds simple, but in reality, very few people do this effectively. And even when they try, it often lacks sincerity, a real emotional connection. We are living in an age where eye contact is becoming increasingly rare. Many people look at their phones more than they look at the loved ones right in front of them. That distance is why so many conversations feel flat, why relationships struggle to grow, and why trust cannot be built. When I talk about looking someone in the eye, I don't mean staring in a way that makes them uncomfortable. What I mean is being fully present with the person in front of you, standing there with confidence, stillness, and focus, not glancing at your watch, not letting your eyes wander around the room, but truly giving them your undivided attention. Do you know what happens when you do that? The other person feels it. They know you aren't distracted. They understand you aren't pretending. They feel your sincerity. That moment creates a feeling of safety. It's like a silent signal that says, I am here with you. I truly see you. You matter. When someone feels seen and cared for, they relax, they open up, and they begin to trust. Humans are born with an instinct to read faces. We are wired to pay attention to the eyes. As children, we looked for our mother's eyes to feel safe, to know we were okay. This doesn't change when we become adults. Every adult still needs that sense of reassurance. It's just more subtle now, but that need is always there. If you truly want to become someone who understands others, creates an impact, and builds real connections, you must recognize the power of that moment of eye contact. Think about the last time someone looked directly at you with their full attention. No rushing, no agenda, just pure presence and focus. You probably remember it vividly because it's so rare, and it almost certainly felt good. In that moment, you didn't feel like they were trying to impress you. It wasn't that they were just waiting for you to finish so they could speak. You felt clearly that they were truly with you. That is the greatest gift you can give another person. And it is the starting point of true influence. You can read dozens of books on communication. You can memorize countless methods and techniques. But if you ignore this simple habit, looking people in the eye with calm and sincerity, then everything else becomes meaningless. Because people don't just listen to your words, they feel the energy, the emotion you radiate. And the eyes are the bridge that carries that emotion. It is through that connection that a space is created for trust to grow. The truth is, most people don't struggle with communication because they lack vocabulary. The problem is they lack true presence. Their minds are wandering somewhere else. They are just waiting to respond. They are worried about their own image. They are not truly in the present moment. And when you are not fully present, you cannot build trust. You cannot understand someone else when you are only half focused. And you will never respond meaningfully if you have never truly seen the person in front of you. When you look someone in the eye, you stop avoiding yourself. You dare to face who you are. You become aware of the energy you bring into the room. This is why the habit is so powerful, because it doesn't just affect the other person. It changes you. It helps you live more authentically. You become more grounded. You learn to accept the present moment instead of wishing it were different. The more you face reality, the stronger you become. You earn more respect from others. You become the person others want to open up to. Sometimes people avoid eye contact simply because they feel anxious. They lack self-confidence. They're afraid of saying the wrong thing. But the truth is, you don't need perfect words. You just need to show genuine attention. You just need to maintain your composure. People may not remember your exact words, but they will remember the feeling of safety they felt around you. That is the foundation of loyalty. That is what brings sustainable influence. And that is the starting point for meaningful relationships, both in your work and in your life. What's interesting is when you learn to offer a sincere and calm gaze, you are also training yourself. You start to notice the small changes in the other person's face. You sense the hesitation in their voice. You perceive what is being left unsaid. Your attention becomes sharper. And at that point, you are no longer just a listener. You become someone who truly understands. That is the cornerstone of social intelligence. Eye contact also helps you control your emotions better. It stops you from reacting hastily because when you are truly connected, you become calmer. You no longer rush to judgment. You don't interrupt people. You slow down. You see the situation clearly. You maintain your composure. That is the mark of someone in control of themselves. And others will feel it. They will give you a respect that comes from deep within. In a world full of noise, where everything moves fast, where everyone wants to respond instantly, and attention is shallow, be the one who dares to look the other person in the eye. Be the one who isn't in a hurry. Be the one who isn't trying to dominate the conversation. Just be present. You will be amazed at how much you start to discover about about other people. You will also be surprised to see how people naturally place their trust in you, sometimes without even knowing why. Whether you are a leader, a business owner, or simply in your daily relationships, this one action is enough to change everything. Because most people are starving for real connection. They are desperate for someone to truly listen. They need someone who isn't distracted. They want to feel the strength that comes from a person who can sit calmly in silence if needed. Someone who doesn't have to talk constantly, but only speaks when it matters. That is the image you build when you make eye contact a daily habit. Now I want to challenge you. Don't wait until it feels easy. Make it your own discipline. Train it into a daily habit. Apply it in every interaction, whether it's just buying a coffee or having a deep conversation. Look the other person in the eye. Be fully present. Hold that space for them. Let them truly feel your attention. That is how you grow. That is how you become a leader. That is the path to building unbreakable relationships. You don't need to speak louder. You don't need to try harder to impress. What you need is to be conscious of how you show up for others. And it all starts with your eyes. It sends the message that says, I am confident. I am open. I am no longer hiding. That is what makes others want to respond to you. That is what they will remember for a long, long time. Because in the end, trust isn't something that's just there. Trust has to be earned moment by moment. You build it with every instance of true presence by showing others that they matter. And the fastest way to communicate that is to look them straight in the eye. So wherever you are today, at home, at work, in a meeting, or simply meeting a stranger, focus on this practice. Don't look away. Connect. Hold that focus. Just one habit. Just one small change, just one point of focus. This is the first step to mastering your social intelligence, and it is the foundation for becoming a person who is trusted and admired. Chapter 2, Speak Less and Start Paying Full Attention Daily. Most people believe that communication is about speaking. They think it's about being heard, being noticed, being loud enough to make a point. But if you want to grow in your ability to connect with others, to truly understand them, and to build lasting influence, then you have to shift your focus. Communication doesn't start with talking. It starts with paying attention. And it gets better the moment you learn to speak less. We live in a world that rewards noise. Everyone's trying to say more, post more, share more. But here's the truth. The smartest people in the room are not the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who notice everything. They're the ones who are fully present in the moment, who catch what others miss, who listen beyond words. That's where real understanding comes from. And if you want to build strong relationships, if you want people to trust you, If you want to grow your emotional intelligence, you've got to start by speaking less and observing more. Most people don't realize how much they miss in everyday conversations. They interrupt, they rush, they're not listening. They're just waiting for their turn to speak. That creates distance. That blocks connection. You can't fully understand someone if your mind is somewhere else. You can't build social intelligence if you're always focused on what you'll say next. But something changes when you stay quiet and truly focused. You begin to see more. You hear the emotion behind the words. You notice the small shifts in body language. You sense the tension. You recognize when someone's words don't match their tone. That awareness doesn't come when you're talking. It comes when you're listening, and not just hearing sounds, but paying attention with purpose. Being quiet doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you invisible. In fact, it makes you more powerful. Because when you're silent, you learn, you see what others miss. You understand what's really going on in the room. You pick up on energy. You catch signals others ignore. And that ability becomes your advantage. In leadership, in business, in friendship, in every part of life, paying attention daily is not a skill. It's not a skill you develop overnight. It's something you train. You have to slow your mind. You have to break the habit of always trying to respond. You have to stop making every conversation about you. Real strength is staying silent even when you have something to say. Because you know the moment isn't about your voice. It's about your focus. And here's the other side of it. People feel when they're being paid attention to. They know when your eyes are locked in. They sense when your mind is present. And they open up in response. You don't need to say much to build connection. You just need to show that you're with them, fully, honestly, and without distraction. There's something deeply respectful about giving someone your full attention. No phone in your hand, no glancing away, no finishing their sentences, just real listening. That level of presence changes everything. It shows maturity, it builds respect, and it makes people feel valued. People don't forget how you made them feel, and when they feel heard, they feel safe. That's when they begin to trust you. But to get to that level, you've got to be disciplined. You've got to make a decision to show up differently every day. Not once in a while. Every day, speak less, focus more. Walk into a room and read the environment before saying a word. Sit in a conversation and catch the little things. Let the other person finish. Pause before responding. That's how you grow this skill, moment by moment. Now, this isn't about being passive. It's not about staying silent forever. It's about timing. It's about knowing when your words add value and when your silence adds more. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing and just listen. Because in that space, the truth shows up. People reveal what matters, and you become the kind of person they can trust with it. And let's talk about what this does to you. When you learn to pay full attention, you start to live differently. You become more grounded. You stop reacting to every small thing. You learn patience. You become a better thinker. Your mind becomes calmer. Because you're not always trying to jump in. You're learning to observe, to analyze, to understand. And that puts you ahead of most people. Not because you talk more, but because you see more. You also begin to respond with more clarity. When you have actually listened, your responses become sharper, more relevant, more thoughtful. You say exactly what needs to be said. Nothing more. Nothing less, and people respect that. They begin to rely on your words because they know they're not empty. They're rooted in understanding. That's what builds long-term influence. So if you've ever felt like you talk too much and still aren't being understood, if you've felt like people don't really listen to you, or if you've struggled to connect with others, then maybe it's time to stop trying to be heard and start practicing presence. Practice staying silent during conversations. Watch how the other person behaves when you're fully there. Notice what they say when you give them space. Watch how the dynamic changes when you speak less and listen more. That shift will surprise you, and you'll also begin to realize something else. You don't need to speak to prove yourself. Your presence says enough. Your calm focus says enough. The fact that you're not rushing to speak tells people you're secure, you're thoughtful, you're not here for attention, you're here for truth. This kind of presence builds inner strength. And once you learn it, you'll start to carry it with you everywhere. In meetings and friendships at home with strangers, you'll become someone people turn to. Not because you talk loud, but because you listen well. Now, some people will say, but if I don't speak, people will overlook me. The truth is the opposite happens. The person who says less and notices more ends up being the one who others pay attention to. Because when they do speak, It matters, it lands, it moves people. And that's who you become when you train yourself to pay attention every day. You can start small. Next time you're in a conversation, catch yourself before you interrupt. Try to notice something about the person's expression. Try to understand what they're really saying beneath the surface. Try to sit with silence for a few seconds longer. Over time, that becomes your strength. Speak only when it adds value, and even then keep it simple, because you've already said enough just by being fully present. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who are awake, aware, focused. That's what you're building here. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to impress anyone. You just need to show up with real attention and speak only when your words come from a place of deep understanding. That's social intelligence, and that's how you become unforgettable without saying much at all. Notice people's tone when they say simple things. Most people hear what's being said, but very few understand what's really being communicated. Words alone are never enough. They only carry part of the message. If you want to understand people better, if you want to respond with wisdom, if you want to be someone others trust and open up to, then you have to train yourself to notice something most people ignore. Their tone of voice, not when they're talking about big emotional things, but when they're saying simple everyday things. That's where the truth hides. Not in the dramatic moments, but in the ordinary words delivered with a quiet edge, or a sudden pause, or a flat tone that doesn't match the message. That's when you catch what's real. That's when you start to understand what people are actually feeling, not just what they're saying. Most people don't realize how much their tone reveals. They might say, "I'm fine," but the tone is tight. They might say, "It's okay," but their voice is flat or just a little too fast. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. You'll think the conversation is over. But if you're tuned in, you'll know there's something more. That's where social intelligence comes in. It's about hearing what's underneath. It's about picking up signals that words can't carry. When you listen to someone's tone, you start to understand their emotional state. You catch the tension. You sense the doubt. You hear the fatigue. You notice the frustration hidden behind polite words. This awareness helps you respond better. You don't just react to words. You respond to emotions. And when you do that, people feel understood. You don't need to ask deep questions to learn about someone. Just pay attention to how they say something simple. When someone says, "Sure," how do they say it? Is it casual, hesitant, defensive, curious? That one word can mean 10 different things depending on the tone. And that's the part you can't ignore, because it's not what people say that creates connection. It's how they feel while they're saying it. And the tone gives that away every time. Now, to develop this skill, you have to become quiet on the inside. You have to stop jumping ahead in your mind. Stop preparing what to say next. You have to really lock in. It takes focus to hear tone. It takes patience because the voice carries subtle shifts. And if your mind is racing, you'll miss them. This is why slowing down your internal world is just as important as being present physically. When someone speaks, their tone reflects what's going on inside them. If they're anxious, the voice speeds up. If they're unsure, you'll hear a dip at the end of the sentence. If they're frustrated, their tone might sharpen, not in what they say, but in how they emphasize certain words. Your job is not to judge, not to assume, but to observe and feel. Pay attention to volume, speed, and rhythm. Does the person sound rushed, or are they pausing more than usual? Are they speaking softly, or have they raised their voice slightly without realizing it? Do they keep repeating a phrase with the same dull tone? These are signs. These are the things you can't get from words alone. And this doesn't just help you understand people better. It helps you build deeper relationships. Because when you respond based on someone's tone, they feel seen. They feel like you actually understand what they're going through, even when they weren't saying it directly. That builds trust. That builds emotional safety. That makes you someone they'll come back to. You see, people often hide their real thoughts, but the voice is hard to control. It leaks the truth. So don't focus only on the content of a sentence. Focus on the energy in their voice. Focus on what shifts when a certain topic comes up. Focus on what happens when they say something personal. That's where insight lives. And if you lead people in a business, a team, or even a family, this awareness becomes your advantage. Because you can catch problems before they become visible, you can sense burnout before someone breaks down. You can notice tension before it turns into conflict. All because you listen not just with your ears, but with your mind fully present. Now, this doesn't mean you confront someone every time you sense something off. It means you adjust your response, you slow down, you ask the right questions, you make space, you offer presence instead of advice. That's what people need. That's what helps them feel safe to open up when they're ready. When someone's tone says, "I'm tired," even if their words don't push them harder. Don't lecture them. Don't ignore it. Show them you noticed. That's what makes you trustworthy. That's what makes you different. Because most people only respond when things become obvious. You'll be the one who sees it early. This habit takes practice. You have to remind yourself every day, listen deeply. Don't drift. Don't assume. Don't rush past the small stuff, because the small stuff is never small. A single sentence spoken with hesitation can reveal a week's worth of struggle. A tiny change in tone can reveal stress, disappointment, or even fear. And if you're listening closely, you'll know exactly when to slow down, when to lean in, when to ask more, and when to just stay present. And here's something important. This works both ways. When you start paying attention to other people's tone, you'll become more aware of your own. You'll realize how often your voice changes based on your mood. You'll see how others react to the way you speak. You'll notice when you say, "I'm okay," but you're really not. And maybe it's time to be honest about it. That's how emotional growth works. It starts with awareness, and then it changes your behavior. You don't need a title or authority to master this. You don't need a fancy education. You just need to be fully here when someone talks. That's the skill. That's the mastery. You're not analyzing. You're not guessing. You're sensing. You're connecting. You're tuning into a layer that most people never even notice. And once you learn to listen at that level, your influence grows naturally, quietly, steadily. So from today forward, don't just hear what people say. Pay attention to how they say it. Listen to the tone when someone says it's fine. Notice the rhythm when they say, "I'll handle it." Tune into their voice when they say, "I'm okay." Because behind those simple words might be a whole story waiting to be heard. And once you learn to hear it, you won't go back. Because now you're not just having conversations. You're understanding people. And that is the real power behind social intelligence. Most people think communication is all about words. They focus on what's said, how it's said, and what they should say next. But if you really want to understand people, if you want to develop real social intelligence, you have to start paying attention to what's not being said. Because silence is never empty. Silence always says something. And the people who grow the most, connect the most, and influence the most are the ones who learn to read silence just as well as they read words. There's always a reason for silence. Sometimes it speaks louder than anything else. When someone pauses before answering, that moment has meaning. When someone withdraws during a conversation, there's a reason behind it. When someone suddenly gets quiet, it's not random. And if you're only focused on what they said last, you'll miss everything they didn't say. Reading silence doesn't mean guessing or jumping to conclusions. It means being fully present, noticing the shift in energy, and understanding that something important might be happening beneath the surface. It takes patience. It takes awareness. It takes a quiet kind of strength, the kind that's willing to wait, observe, and hold space for truth to show itself without forcing it out. When someone goes silent, most people feel uncomfortable. They try to fill the gap. They speak quickly. They change the topic. They try to lighten the mood. But that discomfort often blocks real connection. Because sometimes what a person needs most is not words, but space. Space to think, to feel, to process, to breathe. If you can learn to stay steady in that space, you'll start to see what others never see. You'll notice how someone looks away when a certain subject comes up. You'll feel the weight of what wasn't said when a question gets dodged. You'll catch the meaning in a delayed reply. All of that is communication, and it's powerful if you're paying attention. There's a lot of truth hidden in silence. Some people stay quiet because they're afraid to speak. Some hold back because they don't feel safe. Others keep their words inside because they have learned that no one really listens. You have to earn the right to hear someone's truth. And often the first sign that truth is coming is the silence right before it. This is why presence matters. If someone is silent and you respond with pressure or impatience, they'll shut down even more. But if you respond with calm attention, not pushing, not rushing, you send a message that says, "I'm here, I'm not going anywhere." You don't need to hurry. That's when people start to open up. Not because you force them, but because your calm made it safe for them to speak. And don't confuse silence with weakness. Some of the most thoughtful people are quiet because they're listening deeply. Some of the strongest people pause before they speak because they want to be honest. Some of the wisest people don't talk much because they know the value of choosing the right moment. If you assume silence means nothing, you'll overlook those people and you'll miss the opportunity to connect with them at a deeper level. In silence, people show their emotions more than in words. You see it in the eyes. You feel it in the air. You notice the stillness, the hesitation, the pressure they're carrying. And once you learn to tune into that, your ability to respond with wisdom and care increases. You won't just reply out of habit. You'll respond out of awareness. That's what separates people who talk from people who understand. You also need to be comfortable with your own silence, because how you handle your own quiet moment says a lot about your self-control. If you always feel the need to speak, to explain, to fill the space you were missing, the power that comes from restraint, there's strength in not saying everything. There's influence in allowing moments to breathe. People respect those who don't react to everything instantly. They notice when someone can sit in silence and still be confident. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is say nothing. Just stay, just listen, just be there. Not waiting for your turn, not trying to offer advice, not trying to fix things, just holding space for their thoughts to come out. That's rare, that's powerful, and that's what makes people feel valued. Reading silence also teaches you timing. You start to recognize when to speak and when not to. You know when a comment would help and when it would hurt. You feel when the moment needs action and when it needs patience. That kind of timing can't be taught in a textbook. It comes from observation. It comes from being still long enough to know what the moment really needs. And when you respond to silence with presence instead of panic, you build trust. You become the kind of person others turn to, not because you always have the right words, but because you're not afraid to stay in the quiet with them. That's a rare kind of leadership. That's a rare kind of emotional strength. And it makes all the difference in how people see you. Now you might ask, how do you know when silence means something? You know by watching patterns. When someone who usually talks becomes quiet, pay attention. When someone starts to avoid eye contact while staying silent, notice that. When someone answers quickly all the time, but pauses at one particular topic, lean in. These small shifts reveal what words can. And remember, your job isn't to fix everything. Sometimes the best thing you can do is ask a question and then wait. Don't fill the silence. Let it sit. Let it open the door for something real to be said. That's how you build connection. Not by saying more, but by giving people room to be honest. Silence can also be a signal of strength. Some people don't talk much because they don't feel the need to prove anything. They're observing, they're choosing their words, they're measuring the situation. Don't mistake that for disinterest. Respect it. Learn from it. Sometimes you become a better communicator, not by speaking better, but by watching how others use silence wisely. To build strong relationships, you have to make room for unspoken things. You have to create a space where people can breathe and think. That's how you create trust, not just through what you say, but through the way you stay, the way you don't run from silence, the way you allow it to exist without forcing it to end. People carry emotions they don't always talk about. They carry memories, stress, doubts, fears, and many of these things show up not in their words, but in their quiet. If you care about people, you'll learn to see that, and you'll start responding in ways that make them feel supported, not judged. Reading silence is not about having special talent. It's about training your attention. It's about getting out of your own head and really being with the person in front of you. It's about slowing down your urge to speak and becoming more curious about what's really going on. You'll know you're improving when you stop needing to fill every gap, when you start feeling more at ease, just being with someone, even when nothing is being said. You'll know you're growing when someone's silence doesn't frustrate you. It draws you in and invites you to listen differently. So from now on, don't rush to reply. Don't be quick to assume everything is fine just because no one's talking. Watch, listen, feel, respond from that deeper place. Because the more you learn to read silence, the more you'll hear what actually matters. And that will make you someone worth listening to, not because you speak the most, but because you understand the best. Chapter 5. Ask real questions that help people open up. One of the most powerful skills you can ever build is the ability to make people feel understood. And the fastest way to do that is by asking real questions that help them open up. Not surface level questions, not questions that people answer on autopilot, but honest questions. Simple questions, the kind that make someone stop, think, feel, and speak from a deeper place. When you ask those kinds of questions, you create a different kind of connection. One based on trust, safety, and presence. Most people don't ask real questions because they're too focused on themselves. They want to sound smart. They want to control the conversation, or they're simply not curious enough. That kind of mindset closes people off. But when you ask questions that come from care, not control, you open people up. They start to share things they didn't plan to share. They say things they haven't said in a long time. That's when the real conversation begins. That's when relationships grow. Asking real questions doesn't require fancy language. It requires attention. It requires you to actually listen before speaking. Most people ask questions so they can move the conversation forward, not so they can understand. But the questions that stick, the ones people remember, are the ones that show you were really paying attention, because they connect directly to what that person just said. They reflect presence, and presence builds trust. You don't need to interrogate someone to get to know them. You just need to ask simple things with honest interest. How are you really feeling about that? What's been weighing on your mind lately? What's something you wish more people understood about you? Those are not dramatic questions, but they are real. And that's why they work, because they invite the person to speak freely without pressure. When you ask real questions, people start to feel seen. They realize you're not just filling silence. You're trying to connect. You're trying to understand what matters to them. And when people feel that they drop their guard, they stop pretending. They stop hiding behind short answers. They begin to trust you with the parts of themselves they usually keep private. But here's the key. You can't fake this. If your questions come from a place of strategy or manipulation, people will feel it. If you ask something deep and then check your phone while they're answering, they won't feel safe. If you rush them or cut them off, they'll shut down. Asking real questions only works when it's backed by real presence, real patience, real care. And when someone opens up, your job is not to fix them. It's not to jump in with advice or stories about your own life. It's to stay with them, to hold that moment, to listen without judging. That space is rare, and it's powerful because it allows people to hear themselves clearly, often for the first time. And sometimes that's all someone needs. A quiet space where they feel accepted, not analyzed. Real questions also deepen your own awareness. They remind you that every person has a story. They teach you that people are carrying more than they show, that the smile might hide stress, that the confidence might be a cover for pressure, that the silence might be full of emotion. But you won't know any of that unless you ask, and not just once, but often. Not out of routine, but out of genuine curiosity. When someone's struggling, don't assume. Ask what they need right now. Ask what's been hardest lately. Ask what they wish they could say out loud. When someone's excited about something, ask why it matters so much. Ask how long they've wanted it. Ask what it means to them. These are the kinds of questions that bring people closer, that build emotional connection, that create relationships built on depth, not just small talk. And this applies everywhere. In friendships, in work, in family, and leadership. If you want to lead people, you better know how to ask questions that unlock who they are. You better know how to reach below the surface, because most problems don't start on the surface. They start in what's unsaid. And the only way to reach that space is by asking better questions. It's not about having a script. It's about showing up with real interest. Let the questions come from what the person just shared. Listen for their tone, their pace, their pauses. Then ask, and after you ask, give them room to answer. Don't rush to fill the space. Just let it sit. That silence between your question and their response. That's where trust is built. That's where the door opens. Some people don't open up easily. That doesn't mean they don't want to. It means they're waiting to feel safe. So keep asking gently, respectfully, patiently. Ask without pressure. Ask without needing a perfect answer. Just be there. Be the one who cares enough to ask what others overlook. And remember this, you don't always need deep questions. Sometimes it's the timing that matters most. A simple, how are you feeling about that today, at the right moment can mean more than a long speech. Sometimes the question is less about the words and more about the energy behind it. And when that energy says, I care about your answer, people feel it. And they respond. You also have to be ready for whatever answer comes, because asking real questions means opening the door to real emotions. And not all of them will be comfortable. You might hear sadness, you might hear anger, you might hear fear, and that's okay. Your job is not to change the feeling. Your job is to stay with it, to be a steady presence when it shows up. That's what makes your questions matter. If you make this part of your daily life, if you get used to asking people how they really are, what they're really thinking, what they really need, you will change how people see you. You'll become someone who understands someone who others trust, someone who knows how to make people feel heard. And that kind of person is rare. So make it a practice. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Ask questions that come from care. Ask questions that give people space. Ask questions that help people feel more connected to themselves and to you. And when the answers come, listen like it matters, because it does. Real communication is not about saying more. It's about asking better. That's where real connection begins. And that's how you help people open up, not by pushing them, but by making them feel safe enough to share. That's a skill worth mastering. And it starts with one good question. One of the biggest signs of strength is not how loud you speak, how fast you react, or how easily you win an argument. It's how well you can stay calm when someone pushes your buttons. Because the truth is, anyone can explode when they're frustrated. Anyone can snap back when they feel disrespected. That doesn't take discipline. That doesn't take wisdom. What takes strength is being tested and still staying steady. What takes self-control is being provoked and not letting it break your focus. Every day you're going to deal with people who don't know how to treat others well. People who say things they shouldn't. People who don't respect boundaries. People who talk over you, challenge you, and sometimes just want to get a reaction out of you. And if you respond without thinking, they win. You lose control of yourself. You give them your power. But when you stay calm, when you breathe, think, and respond with clarity, you're the one in charge of the moment. That's where real confidence lives. You don't get stronger by reacting fast. You get stronger by learning to wait, not because you're avoiding the situation, but because you're choosing not to act from emotion. You're choosing to act from a deeper place, a place where your energy is stable, not scattered. That's what separates people with influence from those who just make noise. And if you want to grow in your personal life, your relationships, your leadership, then this is a skill you must develop. Most people don't train their reactions. They just go through life on autopilot. If someone is rude, they're rude back. If someone challenges them, they fight back. If someone disagrees, they raise their voice. But reacting out of habit keeps you stuck. It keeps you controlled by your environment. And that kind of life will always feel chaotic. If every mood, every tone, every word from someone else decides how you feel, you've given up your freedom. You don't need to react just because someone else does. You don't have to match their energy. You don't need to defend yourself at every moment. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stay silent, stay calm, and let them show who they are without letting it shape who you are. That level of emotional control is rare, but it's what makes people respect you. This doesn't mean you allow people to walk all over you. It means you choose when to speak and how. It means you decide the tone, you decide the pace, you decide whether something is worth your time or not. You don't let someone else's lack of control pull you down to their level. You stand where you are grounded and you respond from strength, not from frustration. There will be moments where someone will try to test you just to see how far they can go. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not. But either way, your job is to stay centered. When you respond emotionally, you give them something they can use against you. You say things you can't take back. You create tension you didn't need, and you walk away feeling worse than when it started. But when you pause even for 2 seconds, you change the outcome. That short pause gives you space to think, to see the situation clearly, to ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Most of the time, it's not. Most of the time, what people say or do is a reflection of their own struggles, not a statement about your value. And when you understand that it becomes easier to let things pass, you are not responsible for how others behave. You're responsible for how you respond. That's the part you control. That's the part that shapes your day, your relationships, your reputation, and your self-respect. And if you let emotions take the wheel every time something goes wrong, you'll spend your life reacting instead of living. You'll miss opportunities. You'll damage relationships. You'll burn energy on things that don't matter. But the moment you decide that your peace is more important than being right, the moment you decide that not every situation deserves your anger, that's when you start growing. That's when you take your power back. Because now you're not reacting, you're choosing. And choice is power. This is something you have to practice daily. Not once a week, not just when it's easy, but every day, when someone cuts you off in traffic, when a coworker speaks over you in a meeting, when a friend says something that feels disrespectful, train yourself to pause. Feel the emotion rise, but don't feed it. Let it pass. Breathe. Respond from your values, not your emotions. This takes discipline, but the reward is freedom. Freedom from regret. Freedom from unnecessary stress. Freedom from being manipulated by people who enjoy creating conflict. And the more you train this muscle, the stronger it gets. You'll begin to notice you don't lose your cool like you used to. You don't carry arguments with you for hours. You don't let small things ruin your day. People will start to notice the difference too. They'll see that you're steady, that you don't get shaken easily, that you think before you speak. And that kind of presence commands respect, not because you're loud, not because you're aggressive, but because you know how to handle pressure without falling apart. When someone tries to push you, they're hoping for a reaction. They want to throw you off. They want to feel in control. But when you give them calm instead of chaos, you take that control back. You show that you're not playing their game. You're not interested in drama. You're focused on your peace, your growth, and your direction. Sometimes the best response is no reaction. Sometimes the strongest move is staying silent. Sometimes walking away is the most powerful thing you can do because it shows you're not controlled by ego. You're led by purpose, and you know that not every battle is worth fighting. You have to decide what kind of person you want to be. Do you want to be someone who gets triggered easily, who gets pulled into every conflict, who lives in constant tension? Or do you want to be someone who's grounded, calm, and focused? Someone who can be tested and still stand strong? Your reaction is your responsibility. No one controls that but you. And once you understand that, you start living differently. You stop blaming others for how you feel. You stop expecting the world to be easy. You start preparing yourself to stay solid no matter what happens around you. So the next time someone tests your patience, don't give them your energy. Don't give them your power. Give them your silence. Give them your calm. Give them the version of you that doesn't need to win every argument. That doesn't need to approve anything. That's not interested in getting pulled into a storm. Because you're here for something bigger than that. You're here to grow, to lead, to build something real. And that starts with controlling yourself. Even when everything around you is trying to break that control, that's not weakness. That's mastery. And once you get it, you'll never trade it for anything again. Chapter 7. Match your energy with the room around you. One of the most underrated skills in human interaction is knowing how to adjust your energy when you walk into a room. It's not about pretending to be someone else. It's not about changing who you are. It's about being aware of the environment and showing the kind of presence that fits the moment. That's what smart people do. That's what emotionally intelligent people understand. They don't walk into every room with the same tone, the same speed, the same behavior. They observe first, they feel the energy, then they choose how to show up. People who lack awareness make every space about themselves. They bring high energy into quiet moments. They speak loudly in rooms where people are already tense. They act casual when the moment is serious. And without realizing it, they create distance. They make people uncomfortable. They confuse attention with impact. But being loud doesn't make you respected. Being intense doesn't make you impressive. What matters is connection. And connection begins with sensitivity. Before you speak, you should read the room. Pay attention to how people are sitting. Notice their body language. Listen to the pace of the conversation. Watch how people respond to each other. Are they relaxed, focused, nervous, distracted? That tells you everything. And when you understand what kind of energy is present, you can decide what kind of energy is needed. Sometimes the room needs calm. It needs someone who can ground the tension. Sometimes it needs confidence. Someone who can lift the mood and set a new tone. Sometimes it needs stillness. Not more talking, but deeper listening. If you walk in without noticing these things, you miss the chance to contribute in a way that actually helps. Matching your energy doesn't mean holding back your personality. It means being smart with your timing. It means knowing when to step in and when to hold space. It means having enough self-awareness to realize that it's not always about you. Sometimes the best thing you can do is blend in for a moment. Other times you may need to lead with your energy, but you can't know which one unless you are fully present. This is not about being fake. This is about being in tune. Just like you wouldn't wear the same clothes to a wedding and a gym, you shouldn't carry the same energy into every room. Life is about context. And the people who thrive socially are the ones who understand that they don't act the same in every environment. They adjust They adapt, and they do it with intention. Being adaptable doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It shows that you're not trapped in your own habits. It shows that you respect the people around you enough to meet them where they are. That kind of awareness earns respect. People notice when you pay attention. They trust you more. They're more willing to open up because they feel like you understand them. And that understanding doesn't come from what you say. It comes from how you show up. Think about the last time someone walked into a room and changed the mood for better or worse. Maybe they brought peace when things were chaotic. Or maybe they made everyone tense with their attitude. You felt it right away. That's the power of energy. It's not invisible. It's sensed. And if you want to be the kind of person who makes rooms better, not heavier, then you have to train this skill. It begins with slowing down. Don't rush to speak. Don't walk in and start performing. Pause. Watch. Breathe. Take a moment to feel the space. This isn't about overthinking. It's about awareness. The kind of awareness that lets you respond, not react. The kind that makes people feel like you belong there. Not because you demanded space, but because you earned it with your presence. Every group, every situation, every room has its own rhythm. Your job is to recognize that rhythm and decide how to move with it. Some people walk in and try to dominate. That's ego. Others walk in and disappear. That's insecurity. But the wise person walks in, sees what's needed, and brings it without forcing it. That's mastery. You don't have to change your whole personality. You just have to be flexible. If people are serious, don't joke around right away. If people are excited, don't bring negative energy. If people are focused, don't distract. That awareness might seem small, but it makes a big difference in how people see you. They'll say you get it. They'll feel more comfortable around you. They'll open up more because you're not pushing your way in. You're joining their rhythm. You'll also notice that people who know how to match energy get invited into more opportunities. Not because they're the loudest, but because they're the easiest to be around. They know how to blend confidence with humility. They know how to lead without overpowering. And that balance makes people trust them. That balance builds strong connections. This doesn't mean you always stay quiet or small. Sometimes a room needs your boldness. It needs your light. But again, you have to feel it first. Don't assume every space is waiting for your full energy. Learn to recognize when it's welcome and when it needs to be softened. That's what real social intelligence looks like. You also have to manage your internal energy. If you're tense or frustrated, don't bring that into a calm space. If you're distracted, don't pretend to be engaged. Take a moment, center yourself. Don't make other people carry what you haven't processed. That's your responsibility. That's your leadership. People can feel your energy even before you speak. And when your energy is out of sync, people feel it, even if they don't say anything. But when your energy matches the moment, when it blends with the people and the purpose, things flow. Conversations go deeper. Connections happen faster. Trust builds quietly. You become the kind of person others want around. Not because you always take the spotlight, but because your presence brings balance. This is something you grow over time. The more rooms you walk into, the more you observe, the better you get at it. Don't just think about what you want to say. Think about what the room needs from you. Think about how your energy impacts the people around you. And think about the kind of presence you want to leave behind. You have power. Your voice, your energy, your attitude. They all affect others. Use that power wisely. Use it with care. Use it to bring calm to tension, focus to chaos, and strength to weakness. That's what it means to match your energy with the room. That's what it means to be someone who truly understands people. And once you develop that awareness, you won't want to go back, because now you're not just talking, you're connecting. You're not just showing up. You're making a difference in every space you walk into, and that changes everything. Chapter 8. Respond wisely instead of trying to win arguments. In every conversation where emotions run high, where opinions differ, where pride gets touched, you will have a choice. Either respond with wisdom or try to win the argument. But you cannot do both. And this is where most people go wrong. They focus so much on being right, on proving a point, on getting the last word, that they forget what really matters. The relationship, the respect, and the opportunity to grow. The moment you start arguing just to win, you've already lost something far more important. Responding wisely isn't about being passive. It's about choosing your words carefully. It's about knowing that just because you can say something doesn't mean you should. It's about realizing that when tension is high, wisdom speaks softly. And it always speaks from a calm place. Arguments escalate because people forget why they're talking in the first place. They get caught in proving themselves and defending their pride and trying to appear smarter or stronger. But real strength is found in restraint, in being able to slow down, breathe, and decide if what you're about to say will make things better or worse. There are people who can win every argument they enter, but the cost is high. They leave behind a trail of tension, broken communication, and silent resentment. You don't build connection by overpowering someone verbally. You build it by showing that you're more interested in understanding than in defeating. That's how trust is built. That's how respect grows. And that's how you rise above the level of petty conflict. Some people don't even realize how much they chase arguments. They interrupt, they raise their voice, they speak over others. They twist words, all because deep down they want to come out on top. But what they don't see is that people slowly stop listening. People stop feeling safe. People stop sharing what's real, not because they have nothing to say, but because they don't want to be attacked for it. That's what happens when someone values winning more than a connection. Wisdom looks different. It listens fully. It holds space. It doesn't need to defend every idea. It doesn't react just because something feels personal. Wisdom sees the bigger picture, and sometimes that picture is more important than the point you're trying to prove. It asks, will this response move us forward? If the answer is no, it stays quiet. That kind of control takes maturity. But once you develop it, your conversations change. Not every disagreement needs to become a battle. Sometimes a different opinion is just that. A different opinion, it's not an attack. It's not a threat. It's not a sign of disrespect. It's just someone else seeing the world differently. And if you can respect that, you'll notice that arguments stop turning into wars. They become moments of growth. Moments where you learn something new. Moments where someone else feels heard, even if you don't fully agree. When you respond with wisdom, you create space for both voices to exist. You give the conversation a chance to be productive. You show emotional intelligence. You build credibility, because the people who respond well under pressure, the ones who stay calm when others raise their voice, those are the ones others listen to, not just in that moment, but long after. It's easy to talk when everything is calm, but your real character shows when you're challenged, when someone misjudges you, when they say something unfair, when they twist your words. That's the moment where growth happens, not in how loud you can be, but in how clearly you can think while staying steady. There are moments when silence is more powerful than any comeback. There are times when walking away is the wisest response, not because you're avoiding conflict, but because you value your peace more than your pride. You don't need to win every time to grow. In fact, most growth happens when you choose not to react, when you hold your energy, when you let things pass that aren't worth your attention. It doesn't mean you allow disrespect. It means you know how to respond in a way that doesn't create more damage. You know how to speak in a way that keeps the door open for future conversations. Because burning bridges feels good in the moment, but it leaves you with fewer paths forward. Real power is not in burning bridges. It's in having the control to build them even when you're frustrated. You will always meet people who enjoy conflict, people who challenge you for sport, people who can't stand being wrong. But you don't have to match that energy. You don't have to engage just because they expect you to. You can stay grounded. You can respond from clarity. You can set boundaries without raising your voice. That's what people respect. Not because you won a verbal fight, but because you stayed true to yourself. If you look back at the most meaningful conversations in your life, you'll find that they weren't about winning. They were about connecting, about growing, about listening and being heard. That's what stays with you. Not the arguments you won, but the moments you handled with wisdom. The ones where you could have fought back but didn't. The ones where you chose to understand instead of prove a point. That's what people remember. That's what they appreciate. So when you feel the urge to prove something, pause. Ask yourself, what's the goal here? Do I want to be right, or do I want to be wise? Do I want to end this stronger, or do I want to win just to feel superior? Every time you choose wisdom over ego, you build a version of yourself that's more mature, more stable, more respected. This doesn't mean you avoid hard conversations. It means you handle them differently, with intention, with presence, with self-control. It means you speak truth, but not with force. You stand your ground, but not with pride. You share your thoughts, but with respect. That's what creates real change. That's what makes people want to hear you. Not because you shout the loudest, but because you speak with purpose. The next time a conversation starts to get tense, slow down. Breathe. Don't rush to fill the silence. Don't jump in just to defend. Listen. Ask a question instead of throwing a statement. Let the person feel like you're actually trying to understand, even if you disagree. That alone can change the entire tone of the conversation. It can turn conflict into clarity. You'll be tested many times in life. Your patience, your values, your control. All of it will be challenged. But each time you choose to respond wisely instead of trying to win, you get stronger. You grow more stable. You learn to lead with your presence. That's a different kind of success. And once you get a taste of it, you won't care about winning arguments anymore. You'll care about something much bigger, who you're becoming in the process. Chapter 9. Stay calm when emotions around you get loud. There will always be moments when emotions around you get loud. People will argue, panic, complain, explode, or shut down. Sometimes they'll raise their voice. Sometimes their silence will carry tension so thick you can feel it in the air. You'll walk into rooms filled with stress, frustration, anxiety, or pressure. You won't always see it coming, but when it happens, you'll face a choice that separates the mature from the reactive, the grounded from the scattered. You can get pulled into the noise, or you can stay calm. Staying calm doesn't mean you don't feel anything. It means you've trained yourself to not let those feelings control you. It means that while everyone else is being moved by emotion, you've made a decision to stay steady. That's not easy, but it's necessary. If you want to be someone people respect and turn to when things get tough, most people match the room without even realizing it. If someone is angry, they get defensive. If someone is anxious, they start rushing. If someone is complaining, they join in. But that kind of behavior only adds fuel to the fire. It makes the situation worse. It brings no solution. And worse, it weakens your influence because people don't follow the ones who panic with them. They follow the ones who stay centered when things fall apart. When tension rises, your breathing should slow down, not speed up. Your voice should get softer, not louder. Your thoughts should become clearer, not chaotic. That kind of control only comes through awareness. You have to recognize when emotions are rising, not just in others, but in yourself. You have to know the signs, the tightening in your chest, the urge to interrupt, the pressure in your face. That's the moment to pause. That's when you take charge of yourself. This doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. It means you hold them with discipline. You understand them, but you don't let them speak for you. You decide what comes out, and that decision gives you strength. Because while others lose control, you become the anchor. You create space for others to breathe. And whether they say it or not, they notice, they feel safer. They respond to your energy even if they're still loud. And over time, your presence begins to shape the room instead of the room shaping you. You have to understand something important. Emotional stability is not about being passive. It's about being responsible. You take responsibility for your presence. You decide what kind of energy you want to bring into the room. And the more intense the environment becomes, the more critical that decision becomes. Anyone can stay calm when things are easy. But calmness means something when everything around you is noisy. You might be in a room where people are blaming each other. Emotions are high. Voices are rising. And in that moment, the most powerful thing you can do is stay quiet for a second, breathe, listen without reacting, think before responding. You'll see the conversation shift because your calmness interrupts the emotional pattern. It resets the room. And that's how leadership works. Not by taking control, but by influencing the tone. If you're always reacting, you'll never be respected. People might listen to you, but they won't trust you because they'll know that under pressure, you become part of the problem. But if you stay calm when it's uncomfortable, people feel it. They lean toward it. They respect it because calm is rare. And what's rare becomes valuable. You'll face people who try to pull you into their storm. They'll want you to match their anger, their speed, their panic. Don't take the bait. They're not looking for truth. They're looking for company in their emotional chaos. And if you give them what they want, you lose what you've built. But if you stay grounded, if you stay rooted in who you are, you'll rise while everyone else is sinking. That kind of calm isn't built in one day. You develop it by choosing it repeatedly. You start with small moments, a disagreement with a friend, a stressful moment at work, a family conversation that starts to go sideways. In each of those moments, you pause. You tell yourself, I'm not here to add more noise. I'm here to stay clear. You slow your response. You lower your tone. You speak with purpose. And you keep doing that. until it becomes who you are, not just something you practice. And here's something most people don't understand. Your calmness doesn't just affect others. It changes you. It gives you more mental clarity. It helps you think through problems. It lets you see beyond the emotions. It protects your energy. It allows you to make better decisions. Decisions that aren't fueled by impulse, but by awareness. And those decisions shape your life. Being calm also doesn't mean being emotionless. You're allowed to feel anger. You're allowed to feel frustration. You're allowed to care deeply. But emotions should be guides, not drivers. You feel them. You learn from them. But you don't hand them the wheel. Because once you do, you're no longer leading. You're just reacting. And the moment you give your emotions full control, you lose the ability to choose your direction. There will be days when staying calm will feel impossible. You'll feel pushed. You'll feel attacked. You'll feel exhausted. But that's exactly when it matters most. Because staying calm isn't for when everything is perfect. It's for when everything isn't. That's when your discipline is tested. That's when your growth is revealed. Every time you choose to remain calm, you gain something. You gain self-respect. You gain trust from others. You gain control over the outcome. And little by little, you become someone people look to when they're unsure. You become someone who carries peace even when the world around you is loud. You don't need to fix every situation. You don't need to silence every voice. You just need to control your presence. You need to remember that your energy is your responsibility, and that no matter how intense things get, you still get to choose how you show up. There's something powerful about the person who doesn't flinch, who doesn't rush, who doesn't feed into the panic. They change the room just by being there. That's the kind of person you can become. Not by being perfect, but by being aware, by being steady, by choosing calm when everything else tells you to do the opposite. And when you look back at the difficult moments, you won't remember what others said or did as much as you'll remember how you handled yourself. You'll remember the day you didn't react, the moment you stayed grounded, the time you kept your peace when everything else was trying to take it from you. So when emotions around you get loud, stay calm, not to prove anything, not to impress anyone, but because calm is who you've trained yourself to be. And when you become that steady, grounded, thoughtful, you won't just survive tough moments, you'll lead through them. And that's the kind of strength that lasts. Keep improving how you connect with different people. Every person you meet is wired differently. They think differently, feel differently, process things differently, and communicate in ways that aren't always familiar to you. That's not a problem. That's life. The mistake most people make is thinking they can connect with everyone the same way. They use the same tone, the same approach, the same habits, no matter who's in front of them. Then they wonder why some relationships never go deeper, why certain conversations always feel off, why people don't fully open up. The answer is simple. Connection requires adjustment. It requires awareness. It requires effort. And if you want to build real relationships, you have to keep improving how you connect with different people. You don't need to change who you are. You need to expand how you relate, because no two people are the same. Some are more open, some are more guarded, some respond to direct words, some need more space. Some people share easily, others need more time. And if you try to force your natural way of connecting onto every person you meet, you'll miss a lot of opportunities. You'll misunderstand their signals. You'll misread their silence. You'll speak in a way that works for you but doesn't land with them. Being good with people doesn't mean being the loudest in the room or having the most confidence. It means being flexible. It means being intentional. It means paying attention to who's in front of you and choosing to meet them where they are. That takes humility. It takes patience. It takes the ability to let go of your usual habits and adjust, not to please them, but to connect with them. Every day gives you a chance to practice this. You talk to people at work, at a home, in public, in passing. Each interaction is a small test. Can you notice how they like to speak? Can you sense how much energy they're comfortable with? Can you hear what they're not saying? These things are subtle, but they shape the outcome of the conversation. And over time, they shape the quality of your relationships. Some people don't feel safe opening up to someone who talks too fast. Others shut down when they're met with too much intensity. There are people who appreciate directness and others who need gentleness. And you don't learn this by guessing. You learn it by being present, by listening, observing, and adjusting. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because you care enough to connect the right way. This kind of effort builds trust. It shows people you're not just interested in being heard. You're interested in understanding them. And that's rare. Most people are waiting for their turn to talk. They're stuck in their own pattern. But when someone takes the time to notice how you speak, how you feel, how you move through the world, you feel it. You feel respected. You feel seen. And that opens the door to connection. The more you improve this skill, the easier it gets to work with all kinds of people. You become more adaptable, more in tune, more effective. You start having fewer arguments, fewer misunderstandings, because you're not forcing your style onto others. You're reading the moment. You're picking up on cues, and you're responding in a way that fits. You'll also grow more confident, not because you're performing, but because you're prepared. You know how to handle different personalities. You know how to navigate different moods. You're not thrown off when someone is quiet, or when someone is loud, or when someone is difficult. You've trained yourself to stay calm, to adjust, to lead the interaction with presence instead of pressure. This isn't something that happens in one day. It's a lifelong skill. You get better at it by staying curious, by being willing to say, what worked with this person might not work here. And that's okay. You get better by making mistakes, by noticing when you came in too strong or didn't listen closely enough. And you use those moments to improve, not to judge yourself, but to grow. You have to drop the idea that connection is supposed to be easy. Connection takes effort. It takes emotional work. It takes honesty, but the people who are willing to do that work build deeper bonds. They build stronger teams. They build more trust at home, at work, in every part of life, because they've chosen to keep improving, not because they have to, but because they want to. The best communicators in the world don't speak one way. They adjust their energy, their words, their tone, based on who they're with. And they do it with respect. They don't look down on others who are different. They don't judge someone for needing more space or less attention. They honor the differences. And that's why they're able to lead to influence, to build lasting relationships. You will meet people who challenge your style. They won't respond to your normal ways of speaking. They won't open up easily. And that's not a reason to give up. That's a reason to try something new. Maybe you need to ask different questions. Maybe you need to slow your pace. Maybe you need to step back and just listen. Each person teaches you something new about how connection works. If you're paying attention, you'll also start to realize that the way people respond to you isn't always personal. Sometimes it's based on their past, their day, their personality, their comfort level. And when you understand that, you stop taking everything as a reflection of yourself, you stop making assumptions, you stop reacting based on ego, and that allows you to keep learning, to keep showing up with better awareness, better timing, better intention. This mindset helps you in every area of life. In leadership, you need to connect with all kinds of personalities. In family, you need to understand how each member communicates. In friendships, you need to honor each person's pace and depth. And in everyday life, you need to be able to walk into any space and still connect without forcing it. That's what makes you socially intelligent. That's what makes you emotionally stable. That's what makes people feel like they can count on you. There's no finish line for this. The goal is to keep improving, to stay open, to keep observing, to keep learning how to speak to hearts, not just ears, to bring honesty with kindness, to adjust without losing your authenticity. That's the art of real connection. That's what separates people who just talk from people who truly understand others. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need a script. You just need to show up with care, with curiosity, with the willingness to connect better than you did yesterday. That alone will change your life. That alone will make you the kind of person others want to be around. Not because you always say the right thing, but because you always try to meet people with awareness and respect. Keep practicing, keep noticing, keep growing, because the quality of your connections will always shape the quality of your life. And every time you improve the way you relate to others, you become someone worth trusting, worth following, and worth listening to. That's what real progress looks like. That's what lasting success is built on. Keep improving and you'll keep rising. If you've made it this far, that already tells me something. You're serious about becoming better with people, and that matters. Because in every area of life, the ability to read others and respond the right way will set you apart. It's not about being perfect. It's about being aware, being intentional, being real. Remember, every conversation is a chance to build something. Trust, respect, connection. It all starts with how you show up. Keep improving, keep noticing, keep growing. The more socially intelligent you become, the more doors will quietly open for you in work, in relationships, in life. If this helped you in any way, come back to it. Watch it again when you need to reset. And if you're serious about growing even more, there's a lot more coming. Don't just listen, apply it, because once you master this, everything in your life begins to shift.